Thank you all so much for being here. I know that the last year and change has been pretty challenging for virtually every kind of business in the city and then around the country and the world. And I want to thank all of you for being here. I know it's been tough, but we had that light at the end of the tunnel. We're getting to it. Thank you all so much for being here and for sharing in this part of this day. I also want to thank some of our sponsors. We'll get through these really quickly. Goldman's Business Solutions, thank you so much. They are our title sponsor for today. A round of applause for Goldman's, right? Our corporate table sponsor, Balance Chiropractic. Woo! We're gonna have to talk. It's a long season, for sports. Sometimes I need adjustment. And of course, our strategic partners, Goldman's again, Pikes Peak National Bank, Pepsi, and UC Health. Round of applause for all of them. Thanks so much. All right, so since we're all chowing down and enjoying it, let's check out this short video from Goldman's Business Solutions.
Goldman's Inc. is a local family-owned business that's been serving the needs of Colorado businesses with honesty, integrity, and transparency for over 50 years. Our services save businesses money and offer them a priceless resource: more time.
We perform anything and everything that has to do with a printer, whether that's service, loading drivers, installing the units, or making it work with your internal software.
If it's security, device management, document management, we do have a solution for that.
We've grown to 7 locations throughout southern Colorado and are now in the Springs office and the Pueblo office. I think the advantage in being so locally focused is that we have these relationships with our clients, and we've built that trust over a number of years, and we don't want to betray that trust because they are friends, not just clients.
We create trusting relationships with our clients because we care about what's important to them: collaboration, accountability, respect, and empowerment. We take pride in our company and the communities we serve, and we're passionate about providing our customers with efficient, effective business products and solutions.
We'll sit down, we'll find out, before we even try to attempt to solve a problem, 2, 3, 4 pain points, what type of needs they have, and what that need is behind that need. And then we can find the best solution.
They're not just our customers, they're our friends and our neighbors, and it's very rewarding being able to help those people. And we're not concerned with just making a sale, we'd like to grow with those businesses in our community.
We celebrate the success of our friends and neighbors who trust us with their business, because our clients are so much more than just customers to us. The Goldman's team is an inspiring group of individuals who are passionate about helping our customers improve their business and upholding our company values of honesty, integrity, and transparency.
We're all a part of a team that trusts each other.
Most of us come to work because we sincerely enjoy the passion that everybody has for not only our customers, but for the company as well.
I'm passionate about this team because they are passionate about their work. And to be a part and work with these guys on a day-to-day really inspires me to be the best that I can.
I recently had a warehouse employee tell me that Goldman's is more like a family than it is a company. And I think that describes our DNA.
At Goldman's, we're fueled by a passion for excellence and a deep sense of community, driven to deliver the best for our team members and our customers.
Thank you again to our title sponsor, Goldman's Business Solutions. Coolest thing about this is that we all understand it, but just being here, that all of us, we've been impacted a lot last year. We're in this together. And I know that every one of us can appreciate everyone else for being here and being a part of the community. And we're all looking forward to a really fun and a really successful 2021 year. So without further ado, and I asked him how he wanted me to introduce him, because he is the Hispanic Chamber President and CEO. Now I asked him, do you want me to do it regularly or should I do it kind of sports style? And he said I could kind of choose, and that was kind of a mistake. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do it my way. I'd like to introduce you all to, again, the Hispanic Chamber President and CEO, Joel Dunn!
Well, thank you everybody for being here today. It's been a long road over the last year, as you all know. We're still kind of getting the bugs out of our luncheon. Our last in-person luncheon was probably seems a long time ago. February 2020 was our last in-person luncheon. But we believe now, as the Hispanic Chamber, that it's our role to exercise leadership and understand that we do have a health crisis, but we need to learn how to mitigate and work through this, because we owe it to our business leaders and our business members to connect like this and understand all the different health guidelines that are out there and in effect. But this is what chambers are about. It's about connecting, networking, learning about other businesses. And we thank you for having that courage today to show up to this luncheon. We were pretty surprised that we had over 50 guests register for the in-person luncheon today. So thank you for being here today. We really appreciate it. Give yourself a round of applause for that. But we are open for business. This is our second in-person event of the year. A few weeks ago, we had a new event that we call Café con Amigos. It's a morning coffee social from 8 to 9:30 right here at the banquet hall. And it's just a way to network and connect and enjoy a cup of coffee before you journey out there to your business.
Our next speaker is the City of Colorado Springs Small Business Administrator, Yemi Mabulade. Now, Yemi collaborates for the health, growth, and flourishing of Colorado Springs, making his impact through economic development, entrepreneurship, community development, ministry, and leadership development. In his role as Small Business Development Administrator for the City of Colorado Springs, Yemi serves as the city's first point of contact to the small business and startup community. He is the central figure in the city to support business enterprises across the myriad agencies, putting a strategy in place to assist small businesses. A strong community advocate, Yemi holds 2 master's degrees, is involved with many boards, and is a co-founder and chairperson of COS I Love You, a collaborative gospel movement that exists to unite and ignite Colorado Springs churches to love the city through city engagement and services. Man, Yemi, you're busy, dude. Yemi is a member of the 2020 class of Colorado Governor's Fellows and the 2016 class of the Colorado Springs Leadership Institute. His recognitions include 2019 Pikes Peak Hospice Foundation's Quality of Life Award, 2018 Colorado Springs Small Business Champion of the Year, 2016 Colorado Springs Business Journal's Rising Stars, 2015 Colorado Springs Mayor's Young Leader Award for Economic Impact, and 2016 Alumnus of the Year from his alma mater, Bethel University. Other than that, he hadn't done anything. Above all, his proudest achievement is his family. He and his beautiful wife, Abby, a nurse educator, are parents of an adopted son and 2 biological children. And since every moment I am up here, he is making me look worse, I'm just gonna bring him up here. Yemi Mabulade.
Thank you, man. I gotta be honest, I'm listening to that going, who's that guy? I don't know who that is. That person sounds very busy. I'm busy for all the right reasons. Thank you for having me. I'm gonna sit this down. Joe, thank you. Ramon, yep, you're over there. Moni, it's good to see you. I look around the room and I see a lot of friends, Regina, Joyce, Julie. There are a lot of you that are doing incredible work in this community. I'm so fortunate to know you and to partner with you as we move our city forward. My presentation is in two parts. Jill actually invited me to talk about leadership through crisis. And I don't think anybody in this room has experienced crisis at all in the last year. I think we're all doing pretty good, certainly not me. And you're gonna learn more about that. But I would be remiss to jump straight into that without telling you maybe a little bit about what I do in my job at the city and a group of people who are behind this effort to make Colorado Springs the most small business friendly city in the US. So when it comes to opening up a small business in the city of Colorado Springs, most entrepreneurs share a similar struggle. That is access to the right information to make informed decisions ahead. I just realized that you guys may not be able to see. Informed decisions ahead of their business. And the key is, how can we leverage technology to help entrepreneurs to understand the requirements of starting a business? So let's advance to the next one. Let's start with my story. I am actually the co-founder of the Wild Goose Meeting House and Good Neighbors Meeting House. Believe me, 8 years ago when we stepped into this journey, I had no idea what I was doing. No idea where to go to information, didn't know who to start with and advance. That story is also true with my friend, Todd Goldman. And he owns Red Lake Brewing. His story is actually worse. He was homeless, really, for a few days and didn't know where to find the right information, advance. And that story is true of her, advance. That story is true of him, and these are people that just actually represent people I'm actually currently working with. And that story is true of a lot of other entrepreneurs. So it's the same story over and over and over again. Next slide. All right, Colorado Springs for Small Business Advancement. Next. This is a team of leaders. Every single government entity that touches the small business development process, every single business service organization that touches the small business development process, an entrepreneur, a commercial broker, and a general contractor. So the group is actually bigger than what you see in this picture. We meet on a monthly basis to ask ourselves a question: what else? What else can we do? What ideas, what new products can we create to ensure that we're increasing small business friendliness? Next slide. All right, here's what the COSBA, here's what the COSBA team is designed for: to provide better support to small businesses and shape the future of how businesses navigate the city and government processes in our city. And we have this ambitious goal to become the most small business friendly city in the US. Next slide. All right, let me just walk you through some of our product and solution. My job at the city was birthed out of this group. I was actually at the Chamber and EDC working on this project when the team, we created this job to say the city needs somebody who can represent the city to the small business community. And here's what my job entails. Okay, my job is to put a strategy in place to assist small businesses, to serve as a liaison and a navigator to the small business community. Next. To serve customers, and that is the business community, by utilizing processes and technologies to increase the speed of development. That's ultimately what we want, and to connect startup and small businesses with the right government officials, and to communicate back to city and county officials and streamlining regulatory processes. Roadmaps. This is really important. So another product that came out of this group are roadmaps. So for the person who's never started a business before, how can we take them from the idea phase all the way to the grand opening? Next. So here's an example of a roadmap. This roadmap is just a general roadmap for if you want to open any kind of business in this city, kind of a general journey of what that looks like. That's what you have. Next slide. And then we started customizing the roadmap. So if you want to open up a food truck, we have a customized roadmap for that journey. Next slide. If you want to open up a distillery, manufacturing tasting room, we have a roadmap for that. Next slide. And this one actually just came out yesterday, a roadmap for restaurants and cafes, Julie. We now have a roadmap for that. Next slide. So this just came out yesterday. And so the goal is to keep working in all these roadmaps to open up a business in this city. So that whole group is working on this process with actual business people, business entrepreneurs. We usually have 2 or 3 of them come through the process and they walk through the journey from when the idea started all the way to the end, the grand opening. So, next slide. So to give you an idea of where we're going, we're going to work on a roadmap for a general office, for breweries, for personal services, for general retail. We started talking about a roadmap for business financing. What are your financing pathways in this city? We're also looking at a roadmap to keeping your business open. It's not enough to just open up. You got to ensure that you stay open because half of all businesses close within the first 5 years. So it's not enough to just open, we need to keep them open. So roadmaps, as you can see. Next slide. I just want to mention too that the technology piece is really important. So the roadmap are just PDFs. I mean, you can the downloadable PDFs you can get from the website, but we gotta put this PDF into interactable, clickable links for people to get the information directly, or to be able to go directly to the step, to the site of that step. So this is what that looks like. Next slide. All right, cosopenforbiz.com is the website. When you go there, you can either get started or you can download the roadmap. Next slide. Give you an idea. It's a step-by-step guide. Find your key point of contacts. Direct to your friends, your family members, your clients, folks that are looking for a place to start. And they can find me too on this website and the Chamber of EDC and other sources. Next slide. All right, that's that part of it. Are we good? All right, hang with me here. So thank you for diving in, and that work that we do is really important. And I represent, again, a team of 20 collaborators who are working on your behalf. So leadership in a time of crisis. As if 2020 was not hard enough. With COVID and everything going on Monday, October 5th, a group of my own staff members walked into the business, interrupted my business partner, Russ. He was having a manager's meeting. So Russ handles our operations. I still operate as owner, but not involved in any operations. So Russ was having a manager's meeting. A group of staff members walked in and handed him a list of grievances. Many of the items on this list included vacation and sick time, investor transparency, regularly scheduled raises, and now handling of the tip system, which we did a shared tip system at the time. On Tuesday, October 6th, they had not planned to work the shifts and demanded a meeting to include a few guests that they were bringing along with them. Of course, we didn't know who these people were, so my business partner declined the meeting. On Wednesday, October 7th, they staged a protest outside our business, harassing customers that walked by and customers that were sitting inside. After the initial protest, they made their presence known every day, hosting a protest in front of the business. So what this looked like was really interesting and strange. So our staff would work, and they'll leave, grab a sign, and protest. Might I add that next week, my father-in-law passed away. After everything blew up, his death was sudden and unexpected. He was only 66 years old, and we were not prepared for it. I took a last-minute trip to join my wife in northern Indiana for my father-in-law's funeral. And while I was in Indiana, we were served with papers that the staff was forming a labor union. At the time, they actually had the backing of some pretty powerful organizations like the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. Yes, a crisis was officially on our hands. And this crisis was multifaceted. We had an organizational crisis with our staff. This ended our 7-year culture that we've built. Our business was no longer a safe place for our staff to work. You see, our staff was split in half, those who were against us and those who were for us. The ones that were for us didn't feel safe anymore. They felt threatened to come to work because of the pressure they felt from the staff that were against us. So work became unsafe and a burden for many of them. Yeah, so organizational crisis. And we also had a labor crisis. I mean, there were allegations and implications. And while many of them were false, those allegations, there were claims we had to take seriously. The union was formed. We have no idea what we're dealing with. Like, we've never dealt with a union. We're a mom and pop restaurant cafe. So we hired the services of an employment attorney and a labor attorney. And those are two different things, as we've learned. Organizational crisis, labor crisis, PR crisis is the next one. That probably was the worst. The phone calls, the emails, the inquiries from the TV media, the Gazette, the Independent. That to me was a whole new low. As the public interacted with the drama that was unfolding in my business, it truly was a nightmare scenario. And at the time, we didn't know it was simply a bump in the road or the beginning of the end of our business. We didn't even know what the long-lasting impact that this bad publicity would have on the business, including potentially killing our brand and the trust we have built with our customers. Organizational crisis, labor crisis, PR crisis, and there were others. As COVID was happening, businesses like mine were already suffering, and we already had declining revenues, and we had to close our business a couple of times. And my own family crisis with my grieving spouse, and then that group that protest came at me personally, to stop my appointment from District 11 School Board. That was October 2020 for me. I know it's hard to believe why I still have a smile. I did it at the time, but I grew a lot in my leadership in that season. Let's step back and take a wider view of a recap of the crisis that was going on in our nation and world. You all were part of this story, so this is a recap. Everyone in this room was experiencing this crisis, including those that are watching virtually. So what happened in 2020? January 9th, the World Health Organization announced that there might be something coming up. We're not quite sure. January 16th was the impeachment of President Donald Trump. January 18th, I know you guys really want to know this. Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan announced that they were stepping back from the British royal family. January 21st was the first case of COVID as confirmed in the US by the CDC. January 26th, Kobe Bryant dies in a helicopter crash. January 30 was when the World Health Organization announced, okay, this is an official crisis, World Health Crisis. January 31st, the United Kingdom leaves the European Union, which we know as Brexit. February 5th, the Senate acquits President Trump of 2 articles of impeachment. February 20th, the Dow begins the coronavirus crash and drops over the next almost 7 weeks, which was the most devastating since 1929. February 23rd, Ahmaud Arbery was shot to death by 3 white men while jogging in Georgia. March 6th, President Trump signs an $8.3 million COVID relief bill. March 9th, which was termed Black Monday, the Dow drops almost 2,014 points. March 11th, the NBA suspends the games, and that starts a series of suspension of games by other sports leagues and or other organizations. And March 12th, the Dow drops to almost 2,400 points, a new low. We thought it was low, it got lower. March 13th, Breonna Taylor was killed by Louisville police in her home. March 13th, President Trump officially declares a national emergency. March 16th, Governor Jared Polis closed bars and restaurants and gathering places. March 16th, the Dow falls again. Gosh, the largest point drop in a single day in history. March 26th, Governor Polis orders that, you know what? Everyone's staying at home. This is mandatory. March 27th, President Trump signs a $2 trillion stimulus package. $2 trillion stimulus package, the largest in U.S. history at the time. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through the whole year. April 3rd, that's when the CDC recommends that we should all start wearing face masks. April 6th, the Labor Department reports nearly 22 million Americans filed for unemployment benefits. In the previous month, the largest in U.S. history. April 24th, President Trump signs another $484 billion relief bill to help small businesses. May 3rd, you guys have probably forgotten this one. This was my favorite. The giant Asian hornets, dubbed as the murder hornets. I know you guys have all forgotten. We can't forget that was a very important part of our history last year. May 25th, George Floyd dies while being pinned by a police officer in Minneapolis, sparking months and months of protest. May 26th was actually the first night of protest in Minneapolis. And May 27th, the protest spreads into cities around the country and in the world. Boy, that's just May. That was 2020. What a timeline. Talk about crisis. That year was overtaken by presidential election during a pandemic, racial justice protests, and many other crises. You see, what made it such an unprecedented year is not that we've never had a global pandemic before. We have. It's not that a president has never gone through impeachment. We have. It's not that we've never had marches across the country for racial justice. It's not that any of that. What made it so much of a crisis is that they all happened within the same year. So that's kind of the wider view. Now let's lean in. Perhaps in your own life, in your own business, in your own household, you are also facing crises on top of that. And if you're a parent of school-age children, you know what I mean. Boy, those early days were hard as we try to figure out taking on the education of our children. And here's what I know, next slide. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in a moment of comfort, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. Dr. King quote. Dr. King is speaking of leadership, speaking specifically of your leadership in a time of crisis. I believe leadership today is being tested in ways in ways the world hasn't seen in generations. So my question for you in this room and those watching virtually is, as leaders, where do you stand in a time of your crisis? even more is who are you during crisis? And what type of leadership is displayed during your turmoil? You see, leadership is simply the art of inspiring others in a team to contribute towards the best goal. So what is your inspiration to your team members? And how can they contribute their best when crisis emerges? I don't know, how many of you guys have heard of the name Brené Brown? Most of you, if you haven't, awesome. I'm a fan. Her work has been influential in my own leadership journey. I mean, some of her books include Daring Greatly and Raising Strong. And her core message is about courage and vulnerability. In one of her books that I just finished reading about 6 months ago, it's called Dare to Lead. Brené teaches about living into one's core values and having the courage to make decisions even when the outcome may be uncomfortable. And the outcome may possibly even be a failure. You see, in the chapter on living into one's values, she truly believes that values are at the very center of who we are as leaders, especially in a time of crisis. And if we do not have values, and if we do not act on those values, we fail consistently. Brené Brown states, this is her quote, that the beliefs that are most important and dear to you, that help you find your way in the dark, and that fill you with a feeling of purpose. So when your world is falling apart, your values serve as your guide, your true North Star, your light in the dark. Your values are your way of not just believing the things that are most important to you, but they're there. So when your world is falling apart, they actually shape your decisions, and they actually help shape your directions. I'd like to share my values with you, if that's okay. These are my guiding values, and faith is a part of my story. I know not everyone in this room is a person of faith or even acknowledges religion, so I just want to put that out there. But my values have been shaped from a place of faith. And from the book of Micah 6:8, where it says, the Lord has told you what is right and what he demands. See that justice is done. Let mercy be your first concern, and humbly obey your God. So my values are courage, empathy, and humility. Let me tell you what courage means to me. Courage means unwavering strength in the face of pain or crisis. Courage is my commitment to pursue courage even when it's hard, over comfort. And not to take the easy way out during crisis, because that's kind of what's natural. Courage is demonstrating an unwavering resolve to do what is right for all stakeholders and all parties. It's courage to adapt, to innovate, to take risk, to try new things. It's courage to lead from the front, because our employees and staff need that, even if it means working longer hours. It's courage to admit when one is wrong and even say, I am sorry. It's courage to act decisively and quickly. Empathy. Empathy for me means is that my first concern is for the well-being of others by practicing compassion. You see, empathy is about connecting with people so that they know they're not alone in the struggle. Even with the staff that were against me, leaning in to understand their pain and their why. Empathy is a way of connecting to the other person's emotion and suffering. It does not require that we have walked in their shoes or actually understand what they're going through, but it demands that we try and that we connect. Rarely, this is the thing I've learned, rarely does the right decision and the right action make something better. What makes something better is connection. And my third value, humility. Humility is simply thinking of yourself less and putting others first before yourself. And my commitment to humility, holding power or influence or privilege loosely for the sake of others. Humility, the choice to forego my status and deploy my resources and influence for the good of others. See, as leaders, we need to remember that our employees, our staff members, during crisis are in pain. They're grieving their own losses. They're dealing with their own pain and their fears of uncertainty, around uncertainty. So as leaders, we cannot and we must not make the crisis about ourselves, but rather about our team members. The practice of humility is leading from a place of we before me. The practice of humility is a commitment to inclusiveness, especially during crisis. The practice of humility for me is honor and gratitude. This is as important all the time, but especially during crisis. And reaching out to show gratitude and to show honor to our team members. And see, vulnerability is a close cousin of humility. It means being able to put oneself out there. So my question back to you is, what is at the center of your leadership? What are the beliefs that are most dear to you? What are the guiding values that shape your decision when your world is falling apart? What are those? If you don't know, actually in Brene Brown's book, she has an exercise to walk you through those. She lists about 100 different values and she works hard to get you to narrow down to 2. I have 3. She believes that if you have more than 2, that you're not going to get it done. You're not going to live into them. It's just too many. So what are those guiding? What is your true North Star that you have in place for when crisis emerges? Finally, when all else fails, next slide, embrace the suck. Whoever came up with this term, I hate them. But there's so much truth to embracing the suck. Turns out it's a military saying. It turns out it's also a Buddhist concept. Next slide. It also turns out that Shakespeare has something to say about this. Let me embrace the sour adversity, for wise men say it is the wisest course. Embrace the suck means to consciously accept or appreciate something that is extremely unpleasant or unavoidable, but for forward progression. That could it be our forward progression, the growth we want to come from the suck? In Buddhist thinking, when we deny what reality is given to us, we actually create more suffering. And that wisdom reminds me of the analogy of the buffalo or the cow. Next slide. I don't know. Are you a buffalo or are you a cow? Let me tell you, let me explain, paint a picture of what this is. And this is perfect because in Colorado, we're one of the only places, one of the few places, because we have the Rocky Mountains and the plains. We have both buffaloes and cows. See, when the storm comes from the mountains, from the west, see, the cows, they have a sense that the storm is coming. So what they do is they try to outrun the storm to get away from it. Now, that's just a problem, trying to outrun the storm, because they can't outrun the storm. So the storm catches up with them, and they're caught in it, running with it. And then they get exhausted, and they're in pain, and it prolongs the time for the storm to get past them. The buffaloes, on the other hand, when they see the storm coming, I think you know what I'm getting at, they charge into it. They run directly into the direction of the storm. And in so doing, it actually minimizes the impact. And then they get to experience the sun on the other side. You see, this storm represents crisis in our businesses, in our organizations. Let's make it personal in our families, sometimes with our friendships, sometimes with our colleagues and coworkers. I mean, these are crises, these are storms that we eventually all have to deal with. And it's not a question of if, it is when. And so our primary choice is how we respond to the storm. Are we going to run away from it? Or are we going to charge into it with our values? So, I mentioned that I had a smile on my face earlier, and not because I enjoy crisis. I hate it as much as the next person does. But here's why. Because while crisis can have leaders and community around the crisis shaken, it prevents a unique opportunity for growth, which is what I experienced. Next slide. I love this quote. Crises are places where we find our greatness because they push us in that. In times of normalcy, we don't get pushed. In times of crisis, we find the strength and abilities that are latent inside of us. As leaders in this room, crisis is the greatest opportunity to find your greatness and to activate the people around you. And I'll close with this quote by Rahm Emanuel. Next slide. You never let a serious crisis go to waste. And what I mean by that is an opportunity to do the things you think you could not do before. Thank you.